Hello and greetings from me, Mohammad Jallad. First, I would like to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for this opportunity and reaching so far with Hansa. Recording this video today, which normally few companies would request, give an indicator on how keen and interested you are engaging with your candidates and gives me more reasons to be joining your organization, hopefully. Today, I'm recording using my cell phone, so I apologize for any sound quality or bad quality of the sound, and hope to meet you in person to discuss further requirements of the role and the topics as well. Talking about the topics or questions, I'm gonna start with the first one, how my country handled the situation during COVID-19. To give you a brief, I currently based in Jordan, a small country in the Levant with 10 million population and a huge amount of external debt. That's over $40 billion. So imagine a small country with limited resources that had succeeded, in my view, in passing the crisis. I think the government did well, and that shows from the numbers. From the beginning of the pandemic until now, we have like 800k cases and 10k in deaths. Comparing to other countries with such limited capabilities, I believe it's good. The actions were taken by the government on different levels. First, on actions and measures to limit the spread of the pandemic. We were among the first countries to go for complete lockdown and curfew in March 2020. After that, we gradually opened the different sectors with precautions and, of course, social distancing measures and regulations. The government imposed fines on organizations or citizens who would not abide for the rules and regulations. Second level or the second point or actions, the government found that there is a weakness in the healthcare services, so they established temporary hospitals, two large ones, and hundreds of medical centers across the country to receive any cases from the citizens from across the country. They have enforced laws and regulations on the people entering the country from the airports. They forced 2 full weeks of complete isolation for, let's say, people coming during the curfew, as well as regular and sudden, let's say, PCR tests or random PCR tests from different locations within the country. The second point, or the third one, about the measures they have taken or actions they have taken to, let's say, save the economy, because we sort of like a recession. The government issued a defense law. It's a series of laws. One of the laws indicates that private sector companies could not lay off, let's say, their employees for any reason during the pandemic, and they find a set of measures to help the private sector companies by pumping money from the social security to the, let's say, most affected sectors and help them in paying the salaries of the employees. By this, they saved the companies, they helped them to survive more, and hopefully, after the complete, let's say, end of this pandemic, the economy would be able to, let's say, recover faster than, let's say, before the pandemic and reach to a better situation on the soonest. The second point about the your question regarding the electronic vehicles, hybrid cars, and traditional cars or internal combustion engines. My opinion is if we want to go to a clear energy, the electronic vehicles and hybrids, we should use, let's say, a clean energy sources to charge those cars. We should also consider the safest ways of, let's say, creating the batteries or the components used in electronic cars. And on the long term, if we want to dispose those batteries, would they affect the environment? It's the same case as the microplastic in the video that you have sent. So the electronic batteries are also toxic component, include toxic components. So disposing them after the life expectancy would, let's say, be harmful for the environment. So we should, our companies investing in such a technology should do more research and development on how to manufacture, ensure manufacturing and disposing of such components in the safest way. And of course, to charge those batteries using, let's say, clean energy sources like wind or solar energy systems. In this way, it would be great for the economy, for everyone. The pros and cons for consumers: you save fuel, you save maintenance using electric vehicles, especially if you are living in a city or in a crowded city. You will save a lot of amount of money. But on the drawback or the cons of the having electric vehicle or hybrid vehicle is after a long term it will require expensive, let's say, maintenance. Changing the battery would cost thousands of dollars, especially that they have a life expectancy between 7 and 20 years. So at the end you will end up changing or paying high value to maintain the car. If you would go for, let's say, larger range, the only way is to replace the car because now the technology is limited, so you shouldn't expect that high range, let's say, of distance. So, looking at the benefit, this would be a drawback for especially on the dependability side. If you are traveling between states or cities, you cannot depend on electronic or hybrid car compared if you have, let's say, internal combustion engine. For the traditional cars or the internal combustion engine, of course, there is impact on the environment, bad impact actually, the CO2 footprint, and but it's still going to be in service because electronic cars showed limitation when they are used in hot countries, let's say, or in heavy transportation or in transferring goods. So we will stick to the traditional cars in terms of, let's say, delivering goods and so compared to electronic vehicles unless we have a cleaner energy sources. The government, of course, could add some benefits because some countries will give tax incentives for those who go for electronic vehicles or hybrids compared to internal combustion engines, and this is the case. The third topic is the recession. Of course, the most affected, let's say, group of employees will be the less educated or less skilled from the younger generation for sure. Those, in my opinion, are the most affected sector or segment from the employees because companies, when there is a recession, they will start saving money. They will maintain or keep experienced employees who could run company on the minimum and mainly who can multitask or understand the complete cycle. and therefore they will let go the younger generation or the less skilled employees. Of course, I'm talking about generally as education level, but in terms of sector or industry, it depends. But in my opinion as well, most affected industrial sectors are the sectors who cannot survive more, or let's say would require a capital investment or a huge running cost. They will most likely be subject, or let's say start to lay off employees in order to cut costs to survive for a longer time. The age group we mentioned, they are younger generation because they are less skilled or early joiners. Minimum, let's say between 0 or 3 years experience, and the gender depends on the country. Some countries have discrimination, so they would thought it's easier to lay off females compared to males. If the case is that males are paid much more than let's say females, they will lay off the males who have higher let's say rates. The fourth topic, uh, this one I would like to read it completely. Please describe the way you would prefer to receive a feedback from your manager if you failed a task. Okay, I have, in my opinion, to summarize the answer, I would like to hear a constructive feedback and an open feedback from my manager, but I would like to hear it before we reach a point to have a failed task. So I would like to be proactive, and this will require being a team player. So I'm joining your team. So my manager would be my coach. Usually they will sit together, the team will sit together, will set plans and goals, how strategies to achieve them, because most likely the not everything is documented within company operations, so or guidelines. So some topics or some ways of doing business or the way that each organization would do business is not written and cannot be discussed only if we have better communication internally. And for that, I believe it's so important to have such a communication internally with the management or between the team and the team leader. Because if we are not aligned together, if we don't have internal synergy between the team itself, how could we promote our solutions, or how could we deal with partners and engage with partners if we don't have such a communication internally? How could we establish such an external communication or relationship with other partners? So that's why I would like to have an open, constructive feedback because each one would have to know their performance, what should be improved, the corrective measures that should be taken in order to reach the goals, to set the goals together, to analyze the feedback, to develop a winning strategy, and then prepare a plan and discuss it with my manager to ensure that I'm aligned with the company vision and mission and towards achieving our goals. The last topic about the video, the microplastic and its impact on us, I totally agree with the importance of this topic. Although maybe some, let's say, organizations would not, or the media would not talk about such topics, but I think it's one of the most important topics that should be actually being adopted by governments and decision makers and enforced as well, because this will affect us on the long term as well. How is the situation really bad? Yes, it is. A few years back, we heard that this floating plastic, let's say, in the ocean, is at the size of a continent. So imagine how huge it is. and of course it would come back to us by either consuming the seafood or the drinking water. So this should be taken in consideration, and there is a great examples of companies using recycled plastic or materials like Apple and HP. They use recycled aluminum in manufacturing laptops and devices. They also used cardboard and paper, recycled cardboard and paper in the packaging, and they also mark how much the percentage on the package. This was manufactured by 18%, let's say, recycled paper or cardboard. So this is a great example. Lately as well, we saw the Tokyo Olympics in Japan. The medals were made out of golden materials taken from old cell phones. This is a great example as well of utilizing recycling. And the best example is a company called Under Armour, manufacturer of sportswear. They use plastic from the ocean. They recycled it and make or manufacture sports clothes and shoes made out of recycled plastic. So imagine how good example is this. As I mentioned, this should be adopted by the governments and decision makers, and they should, let's say, enforce the laws and international trading laws as well. Gives tax incentives to companies who are using recycled materials and so on. Finally, I would like to thank you for this chance and opportunity. Those were my opinions and answers to the topics, and hope to receive the feedback from you for any further discussion or clarification. Thank you for your time. Please do being here with you today. Thank you.